I've guided hunts in Alaska for 19 years. I've worked every major drainage in the western Alaska range. I know what a healthy valley sounds like, smells like, feels like under your boots. I know what it means when ravens won't cross a ridgeline. I know what it means when moose trails stop at a saddle and don't continue down the other side. And I know what it means when every living thing, every moose, every wolf, every ground squirrel and ptarmigan and vole abandons a valley and refuses to return. Not for a season, not for a year, for decades. It means something is in there that the animals understand, and we don't. 3 years ago, a client paid me $12,000 to walk into that valley and find out what it was. I found out. I want to tell you I wish I hadn't. But that's not entirely true. Part of me is glad I went. Part of me wants to go back. And that more than anything I found in there is what scares me. Because I shouldn't want that. No rational person would want that. But the valley doesn't care what's rational. It just pulls. And it hasn't stopped. His name was Hollis, Martin Hollis, late 50s, retired early from quantitative analysis, the kind of man who'd made his money building mathematical models of complex systems. He contacted me in June through a referral from another guide in Fairbanks, a guide who'd turned him down. That should have been my first warning. Guides don't turn down clients who can pay. Not up here. When I called Hollis back, he didn't ask about species, season, or success rates. He asked about the valley. I've been studying ecological exclusion zones for 3 years, he said. Places where wildlife populations collapse to zero without an identifiable cause. There are a handful documented worldwide. Lake Nyos in Cameroon, but that was CO2. The dead zone off the Louisiana coast, but that's hypoxia. In every case, there's a mechanism, a chemical cause, a geological event, a contamination. But there's one valley in the western Alaska range that drops out of USGS Wildlife Census data in 1987 and never recovers. No toxicology report. No geological event, no contamination study. The Fish and Wildlife flyover data just stops. The last field note I found says, and I'm reading this directly, recommend discontinuing monitoring. No fauna present, no explanation found. He paused. That's not a scientific conclusion, Harlan. That's a surrender. Scientists don't write no explanation found unless they've exhausted every framework they have. I want to go there. I want to see it. There's nothing to hunt, I said. I know. That's why I want to go. I should have said no. But Hollis was offering $12,000 for 5 days, and my boiler had just died, and my truck needed a transmission, and $12,000 is $12,000. I called Wes Canuck, the bush pilot I'd used for 15 years. When I told him where we were going, the line went quiet for a long time. You sure? The money's good, Wes. The money was good for Dale Holbrook, too. Dale Holbrook was a guide out of McGrath who'd taken a solo client into the same drainage 8 years earlier. They came back 3 days early. Dale quit guiding the following spring, moved to Anchorage, got a job at a hardware store. I ran into him once at a trade show and asked about it. He looked at me the way you look at someone who just asked about the accident that killed your family. Don't go into that valley, Harlan, he said. Not for any amount. What's in there? Nothing. That's the problem. I didn't understand what he meant until I was standing inside it, and by then, I understood too well. Wes dropped us at the valley mouth on September 9th. Clear morning, 34 degrees, a sky so blue it looked painted. The Cessna touched down on a gravel bar where a glacial river fanned out wide and shallow before entering the valley. The valley ran roughly east to west, about 12 miles long, 2 miles across at the widest point. Tundra floor, dwarf birch and willow scrub on the lower slopes, bare rock above, glacial cirques at the far end. On a map, it looked like 100 other valleys in the Alaska Range. Wes kept the engine running while we unloaded gear. That was unusual. Normally he'd shut down, stretch his legs, share a thermos of coffee. 5 days, he said through the open window. I'll be back the 14th. You want out early? Hit the sat phone. I'll come, same day. We'll be fine, Wes. He looked past me into the valley, then back at me. He didn't say what he was thinking. He didn't need to. The Cessna lifted off and banked south, and the sound of the engine faded, and within 90 seconds, the silence arrived. Not gradually, not like sound tapering off. It arrived, like a door closing. One moment I could hear the river, the gravel under my boots, the fabric of my jacket when I moved my arms. The next moment all of that dropped by half. The river was still flowing, I could see it, but the sound was muffled, dampened, as if someone had packed cotton around the valley itself. Hollis noticed it too. He stood on the gravel bar with his pack half-shouldered, head tilted. Acoustic attenuation, he said. Unusual for a glacial valley this size. The geometry should amplify, not dampen. Valley shape, I said. Happens sometimes. I'd heard that explanation from Dale Holbrook. I didn't believe it when he said it either. We set up base camp a mile inside the valley, on a flat bench above the river. Good sight lines, good water access, defensible ground, textbook camp. By noon I knew something was wrong. In 19 years of guiding, I have never set up a camp without seeing wildlife. Even in lean country, you see something. Ravens, jays, ground squirrels, voles in the tundra, ptarmigan flushing from the willows. Something. We saw nothing. I walked a quarter-mile perimeter around camp while Hollis organized his gear. I checked the riverbank for tracks. Gravel bars are natural track traps. Anything that crosses leaves sign. In September, in this drainage, you'd expect tracks from at least 3 or 4 species within 100 yards. There were no tracks, none. Not a single print. Not old sign, not degraded sign, not washed out sign. The gravel was as clean as if it had been raked. I checked the willow scrub for browse. Moose strip willows bear in the fall ragged, broken branches, clear feeding sign you can spot from 50 yards. The willows here were untouched, full canopy, every branch intact. No browsing, no antler rubs, no pellets. Nothing had fed here, nothing had walked here, nothing had been here. But here's what I didn't understand until later. The vegetation wasn't dying. It was thriving. The willows were healthier than any I'd seen that season. Leaves full, bark smooth, new growth on every branch. As if the absence of animals hadn't starved the valley, as if it had fed it. Whatever was keeping wildlife out was keeping the plants alive. Better than alive. Nourished. I knelt by the river. Clear, cold, glacial fed. Good water. In any other valley you'd see salmon carcasses on the banks, dippers working the current, grayling in the pools. The water was empty. Not a single fish, not a single insect on the surface. The river was flowing, clear and beautiful, through a valley that was biologically dead above the soil line and thriving below it. That contradiction should have told me everything. It didn't. Not yet. Hollis spent the first afternoon walking transects. He was methodical and calm, moving through the landscape the way he must have once moved through data sets, searching for the variable that explained the output. "No scat," he said at dinner. "Anywhere. No pellets, no whitewash on the rocks from raptors, no feathers, no fur caught on branches, no burrows, no nests. But the plant biomass is exceptional. This ecosystem isn't collapsed, it's restructured. Something removed one entire kingdom of life and left the rest untouched." He looked at me across the fire. "That doesn't happen, Harlan. That's not how ecosystems work. Remove the herbivores and vegetation explodes, yes. But remove everything: predators, prey, birds, insects, and you should see cascading failure, pollination collapse, soil degradation. This valley should be dying. Instead, it's the healthiest drainage I've seen in Alaska." He paused. "Something is sustaining it. Something is replacing what the animals used to provide." I didn't answer. I was looking at my hands. I'd set my plate down 10 minutes ago, and at some point during the conversation, without deciding to, I'd turned on the log I was sitting on. I was facing west, deeper into the valley. My back was to Hollis. I didn't remember turning. I shifted back. Hollis didn't notice. Or if he did, he didn't say anything. That night, lying in my tent, I could feel my heartbeat in the ground. Not hear it, feel it. A faint, rhythmic pulse coming up through the sleeping pad, through the earth, sinking with the blood in my chest. I told myself it was my own pulse, conducted through the pad, amplified by the silence. But it was too slow. My resting heart rate runs about 60. Whatever was pulsing through the ground was closer to 40. Slow, deep, patient, like something breathing in its sleep. On the second morning, we walked deeper. Hollis wanted to reach the midpoint, the area where, according to the old survey data, the moose population had been densest before they vanished. He called it a die-off. I didn't correct him because I didn't have a better word. Die-off implies death. There were no bones, no carcasses, no skeletal remains. In a mass die-off disease, starvation, toxic exposure, you find remains for decades. Bone doesn't disappear. A moose skeleton is visible for 20 years in dry subarctic conditions. We found nothing. The animals hadn't died here. They'd simply gone. By mid-morning, we were 4 miles in. The valley had narrowed and the walls climbed steeper. The tundra gave way to patches of moss and low grass, and the grass was wrong. Green, September green, full, healthy, lush. This grass should have been yellowing. At this latitude, at this elevation, in the second week of September, tundra grasses go golden and then brown. That's not variable. That's biology. These grasses were as green as July. "Soil temperature," Hollis said, kneeling. He pressed his palm flat against the ground. Then he looked at me. "Feel this." I put my hand down. The ground was warm. Not sun-warmed, the sky had clouded over an hour ago. Warm from below, like the ground above a heating pipe. "No sulfur," Hollis said. "No mineral deposits, no steam vents, no altered terrain. Geothermal activity leaves chemical signatures everywhere. This is clean warmth, biologically neutral. No source I can identify." He looked deeper into the valley. "The energy has to come from somewhere. Heat doesn't generate itself." He stood up. His expression had changed. The analytical detachment was still there, but something else had moved in behind it. Intensity. The look of a man who'd found a variable that broke his model and intended to solve it. "Let's keep going," he said. I noticed as we walked that during our rest breaks I kept ending up facing west. I'd sit down facing east toward camp, toward the extraction point, toward out, and 5 minutes later I'd realize I'd turned. Not stood up and turned, just rotated. I corrected it 3 times before I stopped correcting it, because the correction had started feeling like the unnatural act, and the deeper we walked, the quieter it got. Not just the absence of animal sounds, the attenuation increased. Our own voices sounded flatter, closer, as if the air around our words was thickening, pressing the sound down before it could travel. By mile 5, I could hear Hollis's breathing from 30 feet ahead of me, more clearly than his voice from 5 feet away. The valley was selective about what it let you hear. What we found at mile 6 is where this story stops being a wildlife mystery. A tent frame, aluminum poles still standing, but the fabric had rotted to shreds. The configuration was old, a design from 70s-era mountaineering catalogs. Inside the frame, arranged neatly, 2 sleeping pads, 2 stuff sacks, and a pair of leather boots. The leather was cracked but intact. No mold, no animal damage. Nothing had chewed the leather or nested in the fabric. In any other part of Alaska, rodents and insects would have reduced this camp to scraps within 2 seasons. Here it sat, untouched, for what looked like 40 years. They left their boots, Hollis said quietly. That detail landed harder than anything else. Nobody walks out of a wilderness camp without their boots. 100 yards further, we found a second camp. Newer. A modern dome tent, still mostly intact, with a collapsed trekking pole beside it. Inside, a sleeping bag, a water filter, a paperback novel face down with the spine cracked at page 112, a headlamp with dead batteries, a Nalgene bottle half full of water that had gone brown, and on the ground outside the tent, a notebook. I opened it. The handwriting was tight, academic. Day 3, no fauna of any kind. Soil temps elevated 4 to 6 degrees Celsius above ambient. Acoustic dampening consistent across the valley floor. All frequencies. Preliminary hypothesis. Subsurface energy source creating localized environmental distortion. Need to reach the Upper Basin. Day 4. Sound distortion more pronounced past the midpoint. Clapped hands at the Narrows. Echo returned approximately 0.4 seconds late. Impossible, given wall distance. Something is interfering with propagation. Also noting mild cognitive effects. Difficulty maintaining focus on eastward route planning. Attention keeps defaulting westward, possibly fatigue-related. Day 5. Woke at 0300. Low-frequency vibration through tent floor. Not audible felt. Like standing near a large transformer. Lasted approximately 20 minutes. Measured soil temp at contact point, 11 degrees Celsius above ambient. Source is below. Source is deep. Day 6. Going deeper. Can't explain why this feels necessary rather than optional. No day 7. Hollis reached into the tent and pulled out something I hadn't noticed, wedged between the sleeping bag and the tent wall. A small digital voice recorder, the kind researchers use for field notes. He held it up, turned it over, and pressed play. Dead. Hollis pulled a set of AAAs from his own pack, swapped them in, and rewound to the beginning. The first entry was clinical, a woman's voice, calm and precise. She described the valley's dimensions, the acoustic readings, the soil temperatures. She referenced her notebook entries by number. She sounded like a person doing her job. The second entry was from the following day. Same voice, same calm, but slower. She described the footprints she'd found leading from the older camp. The one with the leather boots heading deeper into the valley. She said the prints didn't return. She said she intended to follow them to determine direction of travel. The third entry was different. The precision was gone. She spoke in fragments. The pull is constant now, not strong, just constant. Like a current you stop noticing until you try to swim against it. A long pause. I'm going to walk to the Upper Basin, just to observe. I'll turn back by noon. The fourth entry wasn't words. It was footsteps, steady, rhythmic footsteps on packed earth. No narration, no commentary, just walking. The sound of someone moving at a constant pace, not hurried, not slow in a sustained, measured rhythm. It went on for several minutes. Then, faintly, underneath the footsteps, I heard something else. Humming. Not a tune, not a melody. A single sustained tone, low and even, rising and falling slightly with each breath. The way you hum when you're not aware you're humming. The way you hum when you've forgotten you have a voice. The recording ran for another 8 minutes. Just footsteps and humming. Then it clicked off. Hollis set the recorder down. Neither of us spoke. That recording is the last clear evidence I have of what happens to a person who stays in the valley long enough. Everything I saw after that, I saw through a mind that was already being worked on. I know that now. I didn't know it then. I told Hollis we should turn around. He said no. Not aggressive, calm, measured. He made his case the way he must have once presented models to boards of directors. We have 3 data points now. The older camp, the researchers' camp, the recording. In every case, people entered the valley, experienced progressive cognitive and behavioral changes, and moved deeper. The pattern is consistent. The mechanism is unknown. Walking away now means accepting that this question has no answer. I don't accept that. People walked in and didn't walk out, I said. That's enough. We don't know they didn't walk out. We know they left their gear. Their attention was redirected. That's a cognitive phenomenon, not a death sentence. He was technically correct. But in the Alaska backcountry, leaving your boots behind is functionally the same as not walking out. We compromised. One more day. We'd push to the Upper Basin, spend 2 hours, then turn back. I'd call Wes on the sat phone that evening. Looking back, that was our last rational decision. Everything after it was the valley's. I agreed because Hollis was the client and because he was paying me $12,000. And because, and this is the part that keeps me awake, I wanted to go deeper too. That want hadn't been there on day 1, not on the morning of day 2. But by the afternoon of day 3, it was a physical presence in my chest. Not curiosity, something lower than curiosity. A pull. Constant, directional. So low grade I only noticed it when I tried to resist it. Like a current in ankle-deep water. You don't feel it until you try to walk upstream. I recognized it for what it was, and I went deeper anyway. That's what the valley does. It doesn't overpower you. It makes the wrong direction feel like the right one, until resistance feels irrational and surrender feels like common sense. We walked for what felt like 20 minutes. When I checked my watch, 2 hours had passed. I stared at the dial. I checked it twice. 2 hours, gone without a single memory of the distance between. Hollis was 40 yards ahead of me, and I didn't remember when he'd gotten that far, or when I'd fallen behind, or what I'd been thinking about for 120 minutes. Nothing. I'd been thinking about nothing. Just walking, just moving west. The Upper Basin began at mile 9. The valley walls pulled apart, and the floor opened into a broad, flat amphitheater ringed by glacial cirques. Moraine ridges ran in parallel lines across the basin. The ground was covered in that impossible green grass, and the grass was worn paths, not game trails paths, narrow tracks beaten into the turf by human feet. They ran in long looping circuits through the basin, dozens of them. Some ran parallel, some intersected, some spiraled inward toward the center, and then spiraled back out. They were deep, inches deep, worn through the grass and into the soil, and packed hard by repetition. The kind of wear you'd see on a trail walked daily for years. Hollis stood at the edge of the basin and didn't speak for a long time. "How many people would it take to make these?" he finally said. "I don't know." "And how long?" "Years, many years. Walking in circles." "Yes." He stepped onto the nearest path and followed it. I followed him. The path curved left, describing a wide arc. After 400 yards, it crossed another path, and another. I stopped and knelt where two paths crossed. The outer path, further from the center, held boot prints. Old, partially filled by sediment, but recognizable. Standard hiking soles. The inner path closer to the center was different. Barefoot, human footprints pressed deep into packed earth by someone walking without shoes. I checked 3 more intersections. The pattern held. Boot prints on the outer circuits, barefoot prints on the inner ones, as if the walkers had removed their shoes as they spiraled closer. Not at once, gradually, circuit by circuit, shedding the things they'd brought in. Hollis had walked ahead. I jogged to catch up and found him standing motionless over one of the inner paths. He pointed down. 2 sets of prints, side by side, walking the same direction on the same path. 2 people moving together, close enough that their shoulders might have touched. The stride was matched, same length, same pace, synchronized. They'd walked this way for at least 100 yards, then one set stopped. Not gradually, not a stumble. The prints simply ended. One final footprint complete, clean, full weight, and then nothing. The ground beyond was unmarked. The other set of prints continued. Same pace, same stride, no hesitation, no deviation. As if the second walker hadn't noticed. Or hadn't cared. They just kept going, alone now, toward the center. "What happened to the one who stopped?" Hollis asked. I didn't answer, because there was no answer that made sense. The prints didn't veer off the path, didn't turn around, didn't show any sign of collapse or fall. A person was walking, and then they weren't, and the ground beyond their last step was untouched, as if they'd been lifted or absorbed, or had simply stopped existing between one footfall and the next. We moved deeper into the basin. As the paths converged, I noticed objects pressed into the earth alongside them. Not dropped, pressed, a wristwatch, face down, pushed into the soil until only the band was visible. A small photograph, I pulled it partway out. A family, a man, and 2 children, sun-faded, driven into the dirt like a seed. A ballpoint pen, a folded bandana, a ring. They lined the paths like cairns, dozens of them, shed at intervals as the walkers circled inward, each object pressed deliberately into the warm earth as if being returned to it, as if the people walking these circuits were slowly, voluntarily, giving themselves back to the ground piece by piece. In the center of the basin, where all paths converged, we found the last of it, a cleared area of packed earth, warm, smooth, dark, like the floor of a room swept daily for a century, arranged in a rough semicircle, facing deeper into the basin. Boots, 6 pairs, ranging from old leather hiking boots to modern Salomons. 3 backpacks, a camera with a cracked lens, 2 water bottles, a wedding ring on a piece of string tied to a tent stake driven into the ground, a pair of eyeglasses, folded, sitting on a flat stone as if placed by their owner before lying down to sleep. Every object was oriented in the same direction toward the western end of the basin, where the valley narrowed to a slot between two rock walls before disappearing into shadow. The slot was maybe 30 feet wide. From where we stood, I could see about 50 yards into it before the light failed. The path singular now, one path. The convergence of all the others led directly in. The path was worn so deep it was a trench, 6 inches deep, a foot wide, carved by feet walking the same line, over and over going in. The footprints in the trench were barefoot, all of them. I looked at Hollis. He was staring into the slot. His face was blank, not scared, not fascinated, blank. The way a face goes when its owner is listening to something just below the threshold of hearing. "Hollis." No response. "Martin." He blinked, looked at me. It took his eyes a moment to focus, like he was surfacing from deep water. "We need to leave," I said. "I can feel it," he said. His voice was flat, calm. "You feel it too. Don't tell me you don't. It's coming from in there. It's been coming from in there the whole time. Every anomaly, the warmth, the silence, the dampening, it radiates from that point. This is the source." I did feel it, standing at the edge of the beaten earth circle, facing the slot. The pull was no longer subtle. It was pressure, not physical, directional. Every lapse in concentration, every moment I stopped actively choosing to stand still, my body moved forward. 1 step, 2. I caught myself mid-stride 3 times. Each time, correcting felt like pulling my hand off a warm surface in winter. The resistance wasn't painful. It just felt wrong. Going deeper felt natural. Standing still felt like fighting gravity, and the pull didn't feel like danger. That was the worst part. It felt like relief, like the end of something exhausting, like the moment before sleep, after days of insomnia. Every cell in my body said go, and the go felt like home. I thought about the recording, the footsteps, the humming, the woman who'd walked into this basin and never walked out. I thought about her voice, how calm it was, even at the end. She hadn't been afraid. She'd been comfortable. She'd been at peace. That was what scared me enough to move. "We're leaving," I said. "Now." Hollis didn't want to leave. What I didn't expect was the difficulty of leaving myself. The walk back should have taken 4 hours. It took 7, not because of the terrain, because we kept stopping. Both of us. We'd be walking east toward the extraction point, and one of us would slow down, then stop, then stand there, facing west, not speaking. The first time it happened to me, I lost about 90 seconds. I was walking, and then I was standing still, and I didn't remember deciding to stop. My body had paused the way you pause when someone says your name in a crowd. The second time, I was standing for 3 minutes before Hollis touched my shoulder. I'd been staring back toward the Upper Basin. The slot wasn't visible from here, but I knew exactly where it was. I could feel it the way you feel north with a compass, a constant, quiet orientation. The third time, and I have never told anyone this, I was humming. I don't know when it started. I was walking, and then Hollis grabbed my arm and I realized I'd stopped again, facing west, and my mouth was closed and my throat was vibrating and I was making a sound, a low, sustained tone, the same tone from the recording, the same pitch, the same rhythm. I stopped the moment I became aware of it, but I could feel it in my jaw for the rest of the walk out, the shape of the sound, sitting in my throat, waiting. Hollis was worse. By the midpoint, he'd stopped 4 times. The 4th time, he'd taken 2 steps back toward the basin before I grabbed him. "Don't," I said. His expression wasn't that of a man being restrained. It was a man being woken. "How long was I standing here?" "About 2 minutes. It felt like 10 seconds. We didn't talk after that. We walked. We kept our eyes east. We didn't look back." The sound returned at the valley mouth, gradually like surfacing from deep water. First the river, a low murmur that built into the rush of glacial meltwater over gravel. Then wind. Then the distant cry of a raven circling the ridgeline outside the valley, tracing its edge but never entering. I called Wes on the sat phone. He came within 2 hours. The Cessna appeared over the southern ridge, and the sound of that engine was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Wes took one look at us and said nothing. He'd seen it before. He flew us to Farewell Lake, and we drove to McGrath, and Hollis sat in the back seat and stared out the window and did not speak. At the airstrip, he shook my hand. His grip was normal. His eyes were not. "Thank you, Harlan," he said. "Don't go back," I said. He didn't answer. 3 weeks later, Wes called. "Your client tried to charter a flight. Same valley." Who'd he call? Mike Peterson, then Darren Firth, then Ray Ankins. Nobody would take him. He offered Ray $20,000 for a one-way drop. One way? No pickup? He wanted to be dropped and left. Did Ray take it? No. But Harlan, he'll find someone. There's always someone who'll fly anywhere for the right price. I tried calling Hollis. The number was disconnected. I emailed. No response. I called the guide who'd originally referred him. He said Hollis had been calling around, asking about overland routes, river approaches, anything that didn't require a cooperative pilot. I don't know if Martin Hollis ever got back to that valley. I've checked missing persons databases. His name doesn't appear. But that doesn't mean much. Alaska is a big place, and people disappear in it regularly. And if you walk in alone without telling anyone, there's nobody to file the report. That was 3 years ago. I still guide. I still fly into remote valleys and spend weeks where the nearest town is a day's flight away. The wilderness hasn't changed for me, but I have. I dream about the basin, not nightmares. That's what people expect me to say, but that's not what happens. I dream about walking the paths, the long looping circuits through the green grass, the warm ground under my bare feet, the pull toward the slot. And in the dreams, I don't resist it. I walk forward, and the relief is so total and so complete that waking up feels like being dragged out of warm water into freezing air. Some mornings I wake up standing at the window, facing west, my hand flat against the glass. I don't remember getting up. Wes told me Dale Holbrook has the same problem, that Dale moved to Anchorage because it's east of the valley, as far east as he could get. Dale told him once, after too many drinks, that the pull doesn't stop. It fades, but it doesn't stop. And some days are worse, and on those days, Dale sits in his apartment with the curtains shut and doesn't move until it passes. I asked Wes if he'd ever flown over the valley. He said once, years ago, by accident, when weather pushed him off route. What did you see? He was quiet for a long time. The paths, he said. From the air, you can see them clearly. They cover the entire Upper Basin, hundreds of them, all converging on the same point. The slot. Yeah. And Harlan, some of those paths are old, but some aren't. The grass is freshly beaten down. Someone is still in there. Someone is still walking. He looked at me. Maybe more than one someone. 2 months ago, my wife found a legal pad in my desk drawer, 43 pages filled with drawings. Tight, precise spiral patterns, paths converging on a center point, looping outward, looping back in. Some pages had dozens of them. Some had a single spiral that filled the entire sheet, drawn with a steady hand, the line never wavering. I don't remember drawing them. She asked me what they were. I told her trail maps. She looked at me for a long time. Then she put the pad back and didn't mention it again. I threw the pad away that night. The next morning, I found a fresh sheet on the kitchen table, a single spiral, half finished, and a pen beside it. The ink on the tip was still wet. Last month, I found something worse. My laptop browser was open to a used truck listing, a 2019 Toyota Tacoma. 4-wheel drive, extended range fuel tank, brush guard, winch, the kind of rig you'd buy if you wanted to drive 200 miles of unmaintained fire road into a drainage that doesn't have an airstrip. I don't remember searching for it. I closed the tab. The next evening it was open again, same listing. The dealer's phone number was highlighted. I've thought about this for 3 years. I have no theory. I have no explanation. I don't know what's in the slot. I don't know what generates the warmth or dampens the sound or empties a valley of every living thing. I don't know what creates the pull or why it targets decision-making or why it feels like peace when every rational part of my brain knows it is the opposite of peace. But I know one thing. The animals are smarter than we are. Every moose, every wolf, every raven and vole and ground squirrel in the Alaska Range understood something about that valley. By 1987, they felt what we feel, and they did the only intelligent thing. They left, and no force on Earth could make them go back. And we, every biologist, every hunter, every curious man with a notebook and $12,000, we walk in, and we find the paths, and we feel the pull. And some of us walk out, and some of us don't. And the ones who don't, they're still in there, walking the circuits, wearing the paths deeper, moving toward the center day after day, like water circling a drain. I know this because on the clearest nights, when the air is cold and still, and I stand outside my cabin and face west, I can feel them. Not hear them, feel them, the way you feel a heartbeat through a wall, faint, rhythmic, patient, still walking, still going deeper. And some nights, the bad nights, as part of me wants to join them. That's the part that scares me. Not the valley, not the silence, not the paths. The part of me that knows, with absolute certainty, that if I go back, I won't come out. And the part that doesn't care.